Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is trainer education, and we're going to discuss concepts versus memorization. So we've actually done a podcast way in the back, past it in number 210, where we discussed this kind of idea of concepts versus memorization for nutrition. So today I kind of was thinking about something this week that brought it to mind again, but more so in regards to training. And I wanted to present it to trainers as an important aspect of learning information and turning that information into actual knowledge. So just because you read something or just because you watched a video doesn't mean you know it. You're aware of it, but you don't really know it. So just how we can be aware of someone in our life. So I'm aware of, a friend at maybe church, maybe at the gym, maybe different places in our lives. We're aware of that person, but we don't know that person. So a lot of times when we come to knowledge in regards to training, and this is including nutrition as well, just things that we would want to be knowledge as a trainer, things that we would want to know in order to help other people or to help ourselves in our own journeys, is we're going to have that challenge of recognizing, are we aware of this or do we really know this? And again, it comes down to concepts versus memorization. So what brought this to mind for me was I was teaching a video about bench press, and it'll actually be available by the time you guys hear this podcast. There's a YouTube video we'll have on our Brutal Iron Gym channel, and it should be titled something along the lines of bench press technique and basic information. So I was presenting a way in which someone can set up for bench press to ensure that they have proper position. And one of the things I was kind of going through and showing was how I set up. So I lay down on the bench. I typically get my eyes under the bar, so that way I'm not all the way under the bar, so when I unrack it and try to press, I'd be hitting the J-cups. But I'm also not a mile away from the bar, so where it would be very hard to unrack the bar. So I typically lay down with my eyes under the bar. I'll then kind of get my hands set where I want them. I pick up my upper body, actually pulling from the bar, to pinch my shoulder blades together, then I set my upper body back down on the bench. From there, I kind of push through my feet to slide my hips up the bench towards my shoulders. This allows me to tighten my arch, specifically for the purpose of getting my lats tight. So I actually slide through my feet in a leg extension manner, not a pressing manner. So if you push through your heels, you'll pick your butt up. And that tends to promote people to kind of flex their lower back, and then their body is not totally set when they bench press in the sense of lat tightness, and it's more likely for them to push their butt up off the bench when they bench press, which they shouldn't do. So instead, you should slide your body up the bench using a leg extension mechanism. So if you think of extending your legs like a leg extension, that will slide your body up the bench so you can tighten your arch and your lats, but it won't pick your butt up. So I was kind of going through all these processes, and it brought to mind was when some people see the video, they're going to say, oh, well, I set up differently. Oh, I saw so-and-so said you should do this when you set up. And the problem will be is the lifters themselves won't recognize what's trying to be accomplished. So the setup, how you set up, doesn't really matter. It's just that you're set up that matters. So meaning like your shoulder blade position. Your shoulder blades should be pulled together. What that does is it flattens the surface of the shoulder blades flat to match the surface of the bench. So if you just lay down on the bench in like normal, our shoulder blades are actually angled slightly like kind of like where the inside of the shoulder blade would be pressing into the bench, but the outside of the shoulder blade is not on the bench. So it doesn't give us a flat surface. So if I want to stand for squats, if I want to stand on the ground, okay, to squat a barbell, I want to have my whole foot flat on the floor. So that way I have full contact with my foot and I can create the most power through that. By pulling our shoulder blades together, it allows us to have a full flat surface of the shoulder blade onto the bench press. So when we unrack the bar and we're holding all of that weight in our hands, and that's transferring through our arms down into our shoulders will be as stable as possible by having our shoulder blades pinched together. So, does a person have to set their shoulder blades being pinched in the way that I do? No. So they don't have to pick themselves up off the bench to pinch and then set back down. The reason why I tend to do that is because typically if somebody just tries to pinch one side in, then the other side in, they might not have them equal. So they might have one side more pinched than the other side. So I like to pinch them both at the exact same time because I find that gives me a better sense of evenness in the pinch. But as long as the shoulder blades are together, isn't that really the goal, right? So how you get there doesn't really matter. Now, as long as you get there and you get there correctly, that's what matters. So if somebody sets up in a different way and they don't get as good of a setup, then of course that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that the quality doesn't matter. The quality should still be the best quality. But if you can take two approaches and both of them equal 100% quality, who gives a shit? Okay, take whichever approach you want. So that's what it made me think of, learning concepts versus memorization. So if someone says, well, I set up in a different way, my answer shouldn't be as a trainer, well, you need to set up the way that I want you to. That's the wrong answer. The correct answer is, this is the purpose of the setup. If your setup achieves this purpose as well, then great. If it doesn't, then try my way and maybe it'll work for you. So it's more important that we understand the concept of what's trying to be met. So what are the requirements? What are the needs, okay, of the thing we're doing versus just memorizing how we're doing it. So for example, hand placement on a bench press. Where you put your hands on the bar is extremely different for every person. Some people are chest dominant, some people are tricep dominant, some people have wide shoulders, some people have narrow shoulders, some people have better of like a thoracic kind of mobility, still have a better arch than other people. There are a lot of personal differences. So if you have anyone who teaches you that everyone should do X, they are not a good trainer. If they teach you that everyone should end up in a position that allows for blank, blank, blank to happen, okay, for the concept to happen, then that's okay. So for example, in the bench press, some people tend to pick a really wide hand position because it shortens the range of motion. That tends to be okay if you're chest dominant and or you have blended muscular kind of abilities. However, if you're more tricep dominant, okay, and you want to kind of protect your shoulders, maybe you've had a shoulder injury, maybe you've had a shoulder issue, maybe you've had a previous pec tear. If there's something that you're trying to protect in your shoulders or chest, having a little bit of a narrower grip, okay, than the widest grip available actually gives you more safety in your shoulders and it gives you more power reliability through your triceps. So the best world record bench pressers, male and female, okay, have a variety of grips. Some of them have the widest grip that is legally allowed in powerlifting. Some of them have a very narrow grip for their shoulder width. But they're all world record holders. So what is right? What's right is what gives you the most power for your abilities. What gives you the most strength for your abilities. So given what you're given, okay, connective tissue strength, chest strength, tricep strength, shoulder stability and structural strength, given what you have, find the position that gives you the most power. That is the answer. So there's actually very famous people who will tell you, take the width of your shoulder blades, double it, and then, the width of your collarbones, okay, double that distance, and that's where you should put your hands. Horrible advice. Horrible. Some people that's going to work well. Some people that's going to be horrible, and it's going to cause injury. It's going to cause lack of power. They're going to be extremely weak. Just because that's the distance that worked for them doesn't mean it's the right distance for everyone else. And that's absolutely proven fact because there are world record holders who have a different hand distance. Okay? So it's important that we understand as trainers not to put black and white memorizational type information in front of people. what is the concept that needs met? And if there are multiple ways to meet that concept with equal efficiency in results, then so be it. There's no need to force someone to do something in a manner that does not best match their needs or natural abilities if it doesn't improve upon the outcome. If the outcome can be met by a different way, let them do it a different way. So that's what's very important as a trainer to know. And this is important not only in training, excuse me, because people have different body types, people have different body needs. So a lot of the people I work with come to me through a friend of a friend or online. They'll see some sources and stuff to where I've been able to help people with physical injuries get back to being strong and actually stronger than they were before. So I've helped people who've like torn muscles, who have a ton of tendon, like connective tissue issues, and yet they've come back and set like, powerlifting records because we were able to find the best mechanics for their body type. Take them out of these positions that somebody once told them were the only way to do it, but that way led to an injury. We were able to find ways that actually better matched their body type, and it kept them safer, and they were actually able to get stronger in the long run. Okay? Now, what about nutrition advice? Just because maybe we find a vegan lifestyle to best match our preferences and kind of life choices, that should not mean that we require everyone else we ever know to become vegans. Okay? They have their own life choice, just like you had a life choice. Now, I'm not picking only on vegans, but if somebody does, like, say, a keto diet, okay, or intermittent fasting, or whatever the hell it is that you did that helped you, recognize that not everyone has to do it your way. What are the concepts of nutrition that are most important? We've covered that in podcast 41, titled Diet Right, What Matters Most. You have to get control of calories. Okay, that's the most important part. If you eat too many calories, you will be overweight. If you eat too few of calories, you will not be able to lose weight. There's actually a right amount of calories, okay, in the middle, that when controlled can help someone lose body fat steadily, but still have good performance and still have good daily moods and have good muscle tissue. Then there's the right amount of calories that are slightly above our normal needs that allow us to build new muscle, but stay lean. Maybe to have best performance, not really lose weight, not really gain weight, but just perform to our best. So calories will determine the direction of body weight, whether it increases, decreases, or stays the same. So calories is the most important thing we would look for when it comes to nutrition. Now, how you control your calories doesn't really matter compared to how someone else does it. So if someone controls it through intermittent fasting, okay. Somebody controls it through keto, okay. Somebody controls it through whatever the hell the most stupid fad that is nowadays, okay. Now, are there other components that are extremely important and play a role in the quality of the process that we experience? Yes. Okay. So for example, meal timing. If you eat meals, okay, you eat your food, more calories when you're more active and less calories when you're less active. You will feel better and you will actually look leaner. You'll have lower level of water retention because you'll have lower stress in your body. You're also just going to have better fueled energy sources in your body when you need it. So you will look better and you will feel better if you get meal timing correct. But if you get meal timing wrong, but your calories are still correct, you'll still be going towards your goal. You're just going to hate the process. Okay, you're going to feel like shit all the time. You're going to be puffy and watery and not look very good. So if somebody's in a caloric deficit, a correct, controllable caloric deficit to lose body fat, and they have mismanaged meal timing, they will still lose body fat. They're just going to hate the process, feel like shit. Nothing's going to go well. It's going to be absolutely miserable. and they will stop their journey, not because it wasn't working, just because it was freaking horrible and they didn't like the process. So it is important to get the other components correct. But just because we didn't get meal timing correct doesn't mean we're not going to get the right direction. The direction will still be correct if the calories are correct. So again, what I'm trying to say here is there's more than one way to accomplish things. Very often there is. What we need accomplished is specific. That's actually one thing. So in bench press, you need your shoulder blades to be positioned correctly, to be safest and strongest. Definitively, you can't do it. You can't be safe and strong without your shoulder blades in the right position. Okay? So, but how you get them in the right position can be different from person to person. So when we learn something as a trainer, okay, just because you read it, just because you watched it, does not mean you know it. It means you're aware of it. One of the ways in which you can know something, better know it, is to list the concepts of what's being accomplished, not the steps of how it was accomplished. So if you write down the steps of setting up correctly for a bench press, that doesn't ensure that you know why you're doing each step. It just means you know that a step needs done. So I can read a manual of how to put together a car engine, but that doesn't mean I know what each part actually does. I just know where to put it. That's it. So we need to be aware of that when we're a trainer. Do we know the concepts that need met? Or are we just memorizing the steps required? The reason why this is a thing that we need to pay attention to is because if you only memorize steps, what are you going to do when you have a client or you yourself don't fit into those steps? Okay? Maybe you have somebody who has really poor upper body posture. They've had a bad shoulder. Okay? Maybe they have really just horrible, poor thoracic spine mobility. But you know that they need to squat to help their hip, thighs, okay, musculature, to help their hip, knee, and ankle joints. You know they need to squat. If the only squat that you know is a barbell squat, but they have poor upper body posture, what the hell are you going to do? Are you going to put a bar on their upper back and hurt them? Or are you going to understand the concept of what needs met and find a variation of a squat that meets the conceptual needs of the lower body, but can account for the individual needs and issues of the upper body? Okay? So you may know that there's a barbell squat, maybe safety squat bar, maybe there's belt squats, maybe you even have a leg press. Okay? But do you know why one of those may be a better choice than the other? Rather than just thinking like, oh, they're all different forms of me doing leg presses or leg movements. So a leg press is just a squat against a machine, right? So they're all different forms of squats. They're all fine. They're all squats. No, not at all. There are extreme differences between those. Okay? So for example, a safety squat bar has what's called a camber to where the plates go on the bar. And what it does is when you put the plates on the bar, it will actually cause a forward rotation on the person. So it actually increases thoracic back stress to use a safety squat bar than it does to a barbell. So maybe somebody has good positioning for their shoulders and upper body, but they're not very strong. So you put them on a safety squat bar thinking you're helping their shoulders, you're actually going to double down on the work of their thoracic spine. So all of a sudden they're going to be really sore the next day in their mid-back. Maybe their neck is going to hurt because you didn't understand that a safety squat bar has that concept involved. And now I don't mean to say any of this to scare you away, okay, or make you question what you really know, but just to be aware that there are differences in knowledge. So there is being aware of something, but then there is knowing something. Okay? So when you're learning something new, try writing down what does this thing accomplish? Like what are the concepts it accomplishes? not the steps of how to do it, but what are the concepts that this accomplishes? Okay? So we've done podcasts in the past on exercise selection. So my computer this morning is being really slow and annoying. So I apologize, I can't come up with a number for that. Okay? But if you search through our past podcast, so just type Brutal Iron Gym Exercise Selection Podcast, something like that on Google, and see if you can find it. Okay, I think it was in the 300s. So the latter half of the 300s. So between 350 and 400 is we have podcasts about exercise selection parts 1 and 2. And we talk about the differences between certain exercises and how you can kind of figure out the conceptual differences. So there might be 5 types of step-ups, but which one's best for you? Well, you have to kind of experiment, learn the concepts, understand which one is which. Maybe one of them works more on balance than on power or strength development. But you need strength or power development, so you wouldn't want to pick the one that emphasizes balance more. Okay? So you can check out those podcasts to see if you can learn more about those. Then, what you can also do is anytime you do something in your own life, in your own training, okay? Or when you talk with a client, if you're teaching a client a movement, try teaching them in conceptual ways. So say, hey, listen, I'm going to have you put your hands on the bar, and this is why we're doing it this way. We're doing it so we can feel an even power distribution between our arms, okay? So for example, the bench press, if you have your hands too wide, you will feel a strain in your outer pec and upper bicep, and you'll also feel instability in your shoulder. So when you go to lock out, it'll just feel really unstable. That's a sign that you have your hands too wide on a bench press. If your hands are too narrow on a bench press, okay, barbell bench press, you're going to press off the chest and kind of have no power whatsoever in the middle of the range of motion. But how do we know what is too wide for each individual? By knowing that what I just said is that if we're too wide, you're going to have straining pain in your chest, upper biceps, and you're going to feel unstable in your shoulders at lockout. Now, that's way more important than saying, oh, well, having your pointer finger on the ring is too wide. No. Okay, Jen Thompson, for example, is the best female bench presser in the world. She's like 132 pounds, benches 315 pounds or 320 pounds now, and she has her pointer fingers on the ring. So you can't say a blanket statement that your pointer finger should never be on the ring, because that's not true. If you were to say that your hands have to be as wide as possible to be your strongest, bullshit. Julius Maddox, who just set the men's bench press world record at like 740 some pounds, okay, he has his hands inside the rings. And he's strong as shit. Obviously, 700-pound bench press. So you can't just say your hands have to go here. Why do your hands go there? Always understand and seek out the why. That will make you the best trainer available, okay? So it'll also make you the best trainer for yourself. That way you can make progress as fast as possible and as safe as possible. Okay? So that's what I'd encourage you to do in this next week as a trainer, is start asking yourself, why am I doing this? So for everything you do, why are you doing it? So if you do a warm-up in your workout, why? Why are you doing that exercise? Does it accomplish as many goals as you want? Does it possibly have negative effects that you don't want? Always ask yourself why. Okay? So try that this next week in your training. Ask yourself, why am I doing this with everything you do? Okay? And when you teach things to clients, teach them why. Don't just tell them what to do, teach them why to do it. Now, if you need any help with any of that as a trainer, you'd like some clarity or maybe some help on figuring out how to do this better, email us at brutalironGym@gmail.com. We're always happy to help. Okay? We'll help you with any questions. Just write what your questions are. I'll either send you the answer, make a podcast about it, send you a book, YouTube video, whatever will help you. Okay? So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to the podcast, and I want to make sure you get the help that you need. So email us at brutalironGym@gmail.com with anything you need, ever. Okay? Cool. So if you like the podcast, please share it with family and friends. The more people we help, the happier the world will be. Also, if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. The podcast is for you, so we want to know what you want to learn about. You can tell us at our email at brutalironGym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful. And thank you for listening. And thank you for watching.